Hi, in this demo, I'm going to be showing you how you can use Signadot to preview any change to any microservice in an end-to-end manner. And in this demonstration, all the services are running in a remote Kubernetes cluster, as shown in the screen here. The left-hand side of the screen shows you the application architecture, which consists of the microservices and their runtime dependencies as indicated by the dark black arrows. And the right side of the screen shows you the front end of the application, which is the user interface. So let me show you how, as a user, I can actually use this application to book a car ride. So I choose a pickup location, I choose a drop off location, and then I click request ride. As you can see that the front end is actually making calls to the location service and also posting a message in Kafka, which is again retrieved by the driver service. And then it calls the route service and then orchestrates a ride. And then you can see the status of each of these services on the right hand side front end UI. So you can see that all the status of all the services that actually process the message or the ride request. And then finally I get notification of the specific driver that has been chosen based on the locations that are specified and the ETA of the car arriving at my pickup location. So in this application, let's say I want to be able to change any of the microservices, right? So let's say if in this case I want to change the route service. So, as a developer, I will go ahead and make that change, and I will publish a pull request, right? So when the basic coding is done. So here is my pull request for the route service change. And as you can see, I have changed the file. I've changed the source code. In this case, it's a Golang microservice. And I've changed the ETA calculation in the route service. So, and another thing to note is that in this pull request, I have integrated the Signadot platform or the Signadot product tool into the GitHub Actions workflow that is that's integrated with the PR workflow. So whenever a pull request is published, a small workflow will run, which essentially builds the image, the Docker image for that microservice, and then it calls the Signadot using the Signadot CLI. It creates what is called as a sandbox that is that basically deploys that branch version of that service, which is in this case a route service, into the same cluster in what is called as a sandbox, right? So essentially, this allows me to deploy different versions of the same service in the same cluster. So it supports this kind of a model and Signadot takes care of deploying the service in that cluster. And now, once I do this, I'm able to actually test this end-to-end flow with the new version of the service. So, and how do I do that? So here I have a Chrome extension. So here is my Signadot Chrome extension, which I will enable. And this allows me to pick any of the sandboxes that have been created in that cluster, right? So in this case, I have created the route service. You can see there are other sandboxes as well. So I'm going to pick this route service corresponding to my PR. So this is PR 220. And so I'm going to pick that sandbox that corresponds to this PR. So once I've selected this sandbox using the Chrome extension, I can now actually exercise the application just like I would do before. For example, I'm going to request a ride here. And now you see the behavior is different, right? So everything was the same as before. The same version of the front end application was used, location and driver services were all the same baseline version. However, you can see this here, which is the route service is using a different version of the route service was used to calculate the routes, right? And that's why you see the difference in the time also. Like previously it was saying 4 minutes and 30 seconds, whereas after my fix in the route service, you see that I see the correct units here. So it was incorrectly printing minutes before, now it's changed to seconds based on my PR change in the route service. And you can see that this is a new version of the route service, which is the sandbox version of the service that was actually hit in this workflow, right? So now I can immediately test by just selecting the sandbox using my Chrome extension. I was able to select a different version of the route service, right? And so how does this work? Like, let's go behind the scenes a little bit. So, like I said previously, this is the architecture of the application. And once the sandbox is deployed into that environment, and I'm using the Chrome extension to actually select that sandbox to be able to preview that change. This is what is happening under the hood. So if you look at the diagram here, it shows you another version of the route service that was deployed in the same Kubernetes cluster, right? And by using the Chrome extension to select that sandbox, what specifically the Chrome extension does is it sets a specific set of headers that are actually request headers that are associated with that specific sandbox. And once those request headers are set, Signadot, Signadot platform that is actually installed in that Kubernetes cluster is able to selectively route the request to the correct or the rather to the specific versions of services associated with the sandbox. So in this case, when you make a request from the front end, which is shown with the headers present, which is shown with the red arrow here, it follows this path. It goes to Kafka with that message headers added to the message. The driver will actually pull out the message, and then the request will be routed to the sandbox version of the route service and not the baseline version, right? By this selective routing of the messages, now you can actually test different versions of that microservice very, very easily, and you can test it in an end-to-end manner, right? So this completes the demo where I was able to demonstrate how Signadot can be used to select different versions of microservices and be able to run an end-to-end test with this. And do note that here I've actually just shown you sort of how a route service is going to be tested. The same thing applies for any other service. So I could have a PR containing the driver service or the location service or even the front end service, and it all works the same way. So I can actually test different parts of my microservices all by deploying what is called using Signadot to deploy a sandbox in the Kubernetes cluster and be able to test an end-to-end flow very easily. And note that I can also combine different sandboxes together and to test them together. So, for example, I can have the driver sandbox and a route service sandbox being tested together, and the requests will flow through the sandbox versions of the services and not the baseline version. So I'm able to just by changing different sandboxes using the Chrome extension, I'm able to hit different versions of the service, and I'm now able to execute end-to-end flows or user flows that will exercise different paths of the application, right? So this is how you use Signadot to be able to iterate very, very quickly um, on your changes. And all of this is happening, remember, before even the code is merged into the trunk branch. So this is all happening pre-merge, and this allows you developers to iterate very, very rapidly because every code change iteration cycle is just a few seconds because all you need to do is build an image and you're able to see the preview, right? So hope you enjoyed the demo. Thank you, and let us know if you have any feedback. Thank you.